and I trust that you've had a great week last week, and I'm looking forward, and I trust you are to a good week this week. It's great that you're able to join me today, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's joining me on YouTube this morning. Welcome. Every Sunday, we are now going on both platform, Facebook and YouTube. So please do subscribe to Ascension Trust channel. Okay, please do that. That's really helpful, so that you don't miss out on any media information and about the work. Okay, we want to make sure that you are up to date. So please do subscribe to the Ascension Trust YouTube channel. Well, it's been a very interesting last 3 weeks for me. And out of this, I want to just share something of my heart this morning and my mind. Because as many of you would know that at Ascension Trust, we have been involved in quite a number of significant initiatives. Many of you would know the Street Pastors Initiative that has been going for quite a number of years, and we have sought to care, to listen, and to help people, and in particular in the nighttime economy, from 10 o'clock at night until 4 in the morning, sometimes 5. I've got home at 6 in the morning on occasion. We also serve on some of our railway station up and down the country, seeking to help prevent people from committing suicide. There are people who are dedicated, serving on the platform, serving on some trains, and just to look out for people who are vulnerable. We have people working in schools, our school pastors up and down the country who are doing peer mentoring, who are supporting young vulnerable children in school, at the school gate, and on the buses. And for me, that's an exciting piece of work. We have people, prayer pastors, praying for us and really underpinning what we do, undergirding what we do with prayer. And that's fascinating. But we also are involved with the Synergy Project, working with organizations like the London City Mission, the Southwark Diocese, Churches Together, Britain and Ireland, Kogop Church. We've been looking at serious youth violence crime. And for me, that is so important as we seek to drill down and tackle some of the issues with young people today in the 21st century. We have projects called 6040, where we're working in partnership with the Methodists, again with London City Mission, and with some other organizations, Young Life. We work collaboratively with organizations to seek to address some of these issues, and particularly those issues that really blight our society. And so I want to make sure that you're in touch with what's happening at Ascension Trust and what I'm involved with the team at Ascension Trust. So please do subscribe to the Ascension Trust YouTube channel. This morning, I want to share, as I said, my heart with you this morning. I've been, over the last 3 weeks, involved in pastoring people, listening to people, praying for people, supporting people through some difficult times as we go through COVID-19 pandemic. And I've been reflecting on my ministry and how things have changed because of this pandemic. It's been over 40 years I've been in ministry, and I've been involved in many things as I've shared with people on different continents and different countries, and right here in the United Kingdom, whether it's England, Wales, Ireland, or Scotland. I've been involved in things, some very personal things, some very general things, but I've been involved. So I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, and I've come to know a great deal of people through my work. Now, it's interesting because some of the things that I do, for instance, I visit mothers and fathers and families who have received the news that their son has been shot or knifed to death on our main high streets or wherever. And that's a very painful experience for me. I've taken funerals, countless of funerals of young people, some of them as young as 16, 17, as young as 21. I've taken funeral. I've sat there and seen the congregation and the pain that's on the faces of the mourners. Somebody asked me once, I hope that you're able to professionally distance yourself from all of this, Les. I said, I cannot. You cannot be involved in people's life, supporting people without getting involved emotionally, mentally, psychologically. You cannot, because you're seeking to empathize with people. And it's been painful. I remember speaking to an undertaker who said to me, Les, after this funeral, I'll have to give counsel, create the space for my undertakers, my staff to receive counseling, because some of them find it very traumatic doing these types of funerals. And he says, as you know, they are a regular occurrence in our society today. I've seen images of young men sitting in a car who have been shot in the head. And those images are still with me. I remember visiting a country outside the United Kingdom and being woken up and gone to a radio station and traveling with a journalist and arriving at a scene and seeing a young man, no more than 19 years of age, with a bullet in his head and in a pool of blood. And then what was really so moving and so challenging for me was the mother of this young man came. And I remember the mother was screaming, and I had to hold the mother back from going to see her son in that condition. Those memories always are there with me. For months, I remember thinking of that scene and thinking of what I'd witnessed and thinking of the family and the community who had to witness this and experience this and go through the trauma of all of these things. But I want to say that, with all those pains, by far, this COVID 19 has been an enormous challenge in terms of my emotions, in terms of the people I've had to speak to, listen to, pray with. It's been a challenge. And yet, for me, I had to draw my hope from the Word of God, from the words of Jesus, from the Bible. And I want to say and just talk to us about some things that are happening now that we need to look at and we need to question and we need to make informed decisions. The pandemic has raised many questions. Since March last year, when I was in in Ghana, and my wife and I was trying to get out, and so I was able to look and to read up about previous pandemic, whether it was a Spanish flu or whether it was a pandemic that happened, last century. But I was able to sort of read up and, trying to gauge the response of governments, the response of NGO organizations, churches, and various charities, and say, well, how did people fare when these things occurred? It was really interesting to see that, in the time of pandemics, one of the main source of contagion, where people were contagious by this thing, was because people met people, so people transfer what they had to other people. We saw that in America when the war was happening, people moved across continents, and we saw that people took the infection to ports, and from ports, those who worked in the port took it to their families and to their villages and to their towns, and we saw the spread of this global pandemic. So there's nothing new with pandemics. The fact is that as people engage with people, people has the potential of spreading the pandemic. And it was interesting as we looked at a pandemic in England where they actually asked people to stay in their homes, and those who were contagious, they had people outside of their home ensuring that they didn't go out. And people are people, so they didn't leave while somebody was watching at the front door. They sneaked out through the back door and went out, and obviously they pass the virus, they pass the infection, they pass the plague to others. So there are lessons to be learned. I was reading about the smallpox vaccine, and what was really hit me was the fact that there we had smallpox outbreak, and there was a lot of people who were opposed to take any form of vaccine or the vaccine of the day. And it was interesting because I see similarities to, the smallpox vaccination, to the plagues. What's played out in the past is playing out again today in the present. But majorly, there's one big difference. We have social media that I am speaking to you this morning on. Social media that we all plug in for our information. And it was interesting as I looked at the smallpox vaccination, I looked at the outbreak of smallpox. One of the things that I discovered that there was a great resistance to this vaccine. And as I read, I realized that there were similarities to today. So here we are in the midst of a pandemic. Here we are with a vaccine. And here we are with people having doubts about the credibility of the vaccine. Now, it was interesting because back in March last year, I noticed that people were sending me all sorts of recordings by eminent people, and they were saying about the pandemic, it was a hoax. They were saying that, there's going to be a vaccine, and this is orchestrated by the powers to be. And there was information after information. And I was amazed because as you travel with your family, with your friends and your colleagues, these information became a topic of discussion and people asking the question. And it was quite obvious to me back then that many people had questions. Many people had reservations. Many people believed, doubted. Many people became inquisitive. And many people began to do their own research. So, what do we see? I've seen over these last 8 to 12 months, I've seen this. I've seen, number one, I've seen that we've been bombarded with information about COVID-19 pandemic and also the vaccine. I was deeply horrified to know that people could gather outside a hospital here in London and shout at doctors, COVID-19 is a hoax. And I was horrified to know that, how does these doctors feel treating these patients, working very long hours, unable to see their families for months, unable to love and care for their loved ones and to be with them, for people to be shouting COVID-19 is a hoax. But that also reminds me of the level of mistrust that people have in governments. Now, that's nothing new. That's nothing new. But here we are in the 21st century, in 2021, and we see globally that many citizens have a very, very small confidence, very little confidence within government and their machinery of information. They have little confidence in the mainstream media as well. So people are searching other places for sources of information. How accurate, how reliable those information are, massive question mark. Massive question mark. Now, we do know that this pandemic is real. I was interested that this week a lady who was interviewed on TV, and there she was with all the breathing operators on, and she said, COVID-19 is real. COVID-19 is real. So my thoughts was, Madam, is it only now you've realized it's real? And yet the reality is there are many people who are still saying COVID-19 is a hoax. I've been I've been somewhat glad and I've been excited that if we're going to overcome this pandemic, then there are various different tools that we need to overcome this pandemic, global pandemic. We need to adhere to the instructions that we must constantly wash our hands. Secondly, we must wear a face covering. As we go out, we must, be encouraged to wear face covering. Now, these are all things that could help us from getting the virus. These are all mechanisms that could help us. Socially distance. These are things that would help us. Now, a vaccine has come along and everyone has questions. Everybody's asking if it takes 7 years to develop a vaccine from scratch, how comes we've developed it in 8, 9 months? What are the safety risks? These are natural questions that we've got to ask ourselves. We do, and people have been asking. I've been speaking with doctors, I've been speaking with scientists, all kinds of different people, academics, and everyone is asking questions, rightly so. But what is alarming is the fact that people are entrenched and saying, definitely not, I don't care what people say, I will not be taking the vaccine. Now, it's important for me to say that all of us have our individual human right to accept or deny it. I'm not here this morning to persuade you to do one or the other. But I'm asking you to look at the facts. I'm asking all of us to recognize that there will be questions. If it took 7 years to develop something and they've done it in 8 months, of course there'll be a lot of questions. Can everyone take the vaccine? Will it work for everyone? I've heard, doctors saying, well, there are some people who will not be able to take the vaccine. For years, I was taking the yellow fever vaccine because it protected me as I traveled to various different countries. For years, I took the yellow fever vaccine, tetanus and typhoid vaccines. I've taken them for years. However, we do know that, yes, I remember traveling at the airport and the custom says that you got your yellow fever vaccine paper certificate to a fellow passenger, and they said no because I'm allergic to the content of the yellow fever. The person said that I'm allergic. Now, I want to encourage us that we must look for the facts. We must seek to look at what information is being given to us, and we must make an informed choice and decision about the vaccine, whether or not we should take it, whether or not we should take it, not for just for ourselves, but to protect our loved one. And if we're not going to take it, well, how do we protect those that we love? How do we protect those that we really care for? Just last week, I, heard of a story of how, families met together. Members of one family have taken, went to visit a family, and because of that, someone sadly died because of infection. Members of my own family have been impacted with COVID-19. This thing is real. We need solution. We need answers. We need we need kits in the toolbox so that we're able to deal with them. Just like wearing a face mask, washing our hands, keeping social distance, the vaccine has a role to play. It has a role to play. And I want to encourage us as we look at all these things. I want us to be an informed people, make a decision, not just because we received something on WhatsApp where we don't know the source, the reliable source, not just because of hearsay, but look at the facts and from there make an informed decision. Let me read something from the Word of God, because in the midst of all these information, I read the Bible. The Bible is a good source of information. And hear what Jesus says: let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe in me also. My attitude to life that one day I will meet Jesus. Not sure when, but one day I will meet Jesus. And I know this for a fact, that if I'm going to meet Jesus, I must leave this world. I must leave this earthly tabernacle to be with Jesus. And so I want to encourage us, recognize this, that Jesus came into this world. And whether we're going through a pandemic or not, whether we're challenged about social distancing, about vaccine, whatever the circumstances are, Jesus says this: let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. But then he goes on and says this: my peace I give unto you. My peace Jesus gives unto you, not as the world gives. My peace I give. So let not your heart be troubled. So be blessed, be encouraged, and stay safe. Please do stay safe. We continue to pray. So God bless you. Have a great week, and may God richly bless you all as we continue to serve the Lord and as we continue to live our lives as well as possible. Thank you.